We start out with a view of Voyager flying through space, but not accompanied by a captain's log. Uh-oh. That's bad. Means the captain's about to do something that she's going to want off the books, doesn't it?
I hereby reduce you to the rank of ensign, and I sentence you to 30 days solitary confinement.
Wait, solitary confinement?
Yep.
A punishment so in opposition to basic human dignity that even the 19th century Supreme Court said it was wrong?
Did they?
That many international treaties consider so psychologically damaging that it fits the legal definition of torture.
You are a history buff, aren't you?
Yet in our utopian future of reform the downtrodden, save the rainforest, put a therapist next to the captain, no animals were harmed in the making of this steak, you'll employ a punishment officially criticized only 25 years after slavery was still legal and people were still dumping buckets of human shit out their windows.
You have to be extra strict to ensure discipline on a starship.
Strict? You didn't even sentence Suitor to solitary confinement.
Well, of course. All he did was murder a man for no reason. But you defied me. You're lucky I don't have you flayed.
So, Tom is thrown in solitary confinement, but at least he's learned not to commit whatever crime that he did. Probably accidentally knocked Janeway's favorite mug off her desk while dodging missiles from an alien armada that she pissed off.
1, 2, 3. 98. 99. 100.
Trying to impress Neelix? He'd be awed if you did the detachable thumb trick.
Staying in shape?
Oh, yeah.
You know, in the real world, in places where they use solitary confinement, the prisoner is still allowed outside of their cell at least 1 hour every day for sun and exercise. This is for people who have attacked guards or murdered fellow inmates. Janeway, though, refuses to allow Paris this, as he asks Neelix about it, and Janeway shoots the idea down. This is punishment, not shore leave. He should be lucky he's not chained to that wall. I'm not saying Tom doesn't deserve to be punished for what he's done, because he definitely needs to have something done to him by the captain. I mean, it's a wonder she hasn't done it in a half dozen other instances so far. And I'm certainly not trying to push anything about prison, by the way, here. Crime and punishment is a huge, complex subject that I do not have time to get into. All I'm saying is, I find it absolutely hilarious that you find the Federation, which is always presented as this liberal utopia, employing solitary confinement. Who could have imagined that the day would come when the Federation would be more right-wing than Mississippi?
Did the words cruel and unusual mean anything to her?
Yes, I have that knitted on a tea cozy.
Being shown Tom's sentence being carried out was actually a late addition to the story. They ran about 10 minutes short and needed something to fill that time. And even Voyager can't employ 10 minutes of technobabble. They usually hit their limit at about 8. So someone suggested, and some sources say it was McNeil himself, this stuff with Tom in solitary already and dictating a letter to his father. This is what manages to rescue what would otherwise have been a rather unimpressive episode into, well, not something impressive, but at least something serviceable. Tom struggles even to figure the right way to start it, rejecting Dear Father and To Admiral Paris, and finally just going with Hey Dad. Tom's relationship with his father is complicated, as seen firsthand when he was confronted by the image of the man who judged him a failure who shouldn't even bother trying. And yet, the show constantly presents Tom excelling at damn near everything, but in his mind, he's never good enough for his old man. So Tom narrates, and of course starts with the most important part, him effing around on the holodeck as Captain Proton. Harry has been taken prisoner, which is inevitable because A, he's the sidekick, and B, he's Harry Kim, whose dignity was tragically lost in a childhood accident involving a bottle of mustard and a wood chipper, and it just never grew back. The villains are played by the often-mentioned but until now never-seen Delaney sisters. That's probably why Harry seems happy. Being chained up and demeaned by twins is about as close as Harry ever comes to arousal. Naturally, he will be further shamed because of this, as he tries making the moves on one of them, the one who isn't interested, rather than on the other one, who seems to be interested in him despite every reason not to be. Tom naturally finds this hilarious.
How many times do I have to tell you I like Megan, but she won't give me the time of day?
What is the difference?
You can't be serious.
They're the Delaney sisters, Harry. They're twins.
Captain Superficial away! Still, Tom's right about one thing. Harry's once again fallen for someone unattainable, no doubt because his ultimate desire is the most unattainable. Libby is back home because, damn it, there's nothing gay about this. The program was interrupted by a call to the bridge. Voyager's discovered something unusual, a water world. Although given Voyager's troubled history, I suppose associating it with Waterworld was inevitable. This is a complete ocean. There's no land whatsoever. Obviously created artificially, but teeming with plant and animal life. And spaceships, because they come flying out of the water. As all aliens in the Delta Quadrant, these refuse to answer hails and fire on Voyager immediately, because we have a certain action quota we always need to hit, so the misunderstood fight is a really good fallback for the show. You get action, but also showing how much better we are because we immediately say bygones once the other ship realizes that they shouldn't have attacked the clearly superior Voyager. After all that, Janeway offers a tour of the ship in the hopes that they can learn more about the space ocean in return. And we learn the aliens were nomads who discovered and eventually claimed this ocean, making it their home. But they've no more idea where it came from than Voyager does. Tom's very excited about all of this, so when Riga, the scientific guy with the red hat, talks about the problems with the ocean and how they can't reach the depth to study the core where he thinks the problem is, Tom is quick to volunteer the Delta Flyer to go on an expedition.
But in my opinion, the most plausible explanation is that the ocean formed naturally, much the same way that a gas giant does.
Right, formed naturally. That's why there's a field stopping it from dissipating. Janeway is, of course, quick to point this out.
Makes sense.
Just kidding. Of course she doesn't bring up the containment field. Never call attention to your continuity gaffes, especially when it's a conflict with something you said 3 minutes ago. But yeah, the Delta Flyer will handle this. Tom is sure about that, and they did build it to handle pressure, so okay. Mind you, 600 kilometers down is going to have probably a hell of a lot of pressure here, because there's almost certainly an artificial gravity source at the center of this thing if it's going to be able to hold together as well as it is. So way down there, how much is it going to be? That pressure could be high enough to turn oxygen into a metal. But given that Tom is so enthused about this, he's likely already scanned and determined that it's within tolerances for the Delta Flyer. It's his turn, apparently, to have always been into something. I guess Chakotay was busy this week. So this week, Tom has always been into the sea. And it fits so well with someone who has never mentioned the sea before, except if you count the time he mentioned the Titanic, which is no doubt on the minds of anyone who's stuck on this ship.
I had it all planned. Finish high school, join the Federation Naval Patrol. But my father had other ideas.
This, tying in with the framing device, will help give the episode some much-needed depth. No pun intended.
Oh, I thought to myself, who better than Harry to be my first mate?
I didn't know you were a virgin too, Tom, but I'd love to be your first. Besides Harry and Riga, Tom's bringing along Seven, whose love of the sea extends to having once seen a painting of it, and is as enthused as ever. But our quartet heads in for the effects shot and eventually gets to the core, where they do discover an artificial structure that is indeed holding this ocean together. 100,000 years old. So not too surprising that it's malfunctioning and causing some of the water to be lost. In fact, at a rate that Janeway predicts, we'll see the complete loss of the ocean in less than 5 years, which is seriously going to impact the Tommy Bartlett ski show. While the Delta Flyer's examining the computer, they're attacked by a giant electric eel. But Seven knows just how to deal with that. She shoots it. Not dead, just enough to make it run away. Or swim away, I guess. So that they can finish dealing with... Oops! Looks like the framing device is breaking in for an important announcement. Voyager is under attack. The disappointing part is that this was not planned. It's not related to the story that Tom is telling. Otherwise, it would have been a nice bit of contribution to the mystery of how Tom wound up in here. Whatever he did, now they're being attacked over it. But instead, it's another example of how Voyager can't get along with anybody. Tom gets hurt, but the doctor treats him and has zero sympathy for him.
Come on, Doc. You don't understand what it's like being down here all day, every day. I'm going crazy.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the idea?
Naturally, as a simulation program to do no harm, I thoroughly approve of inflicting psychological harm on people. Anyway, back to the Delta Flyer, which can handle the massive pressures being inflicted upon it now that Tom has used a hand welder to fix the leak. Yeah, I get the feeling whoever wrote this thought that Das Boot was a film about a boot. Despite the damage, Tom wants to stay down here and finish up.
It's a good bet that the reactor's malfunctioning. Now we're only going to get one shot at fixing it.
What? Why? You can fix the ship and then come back, you know. It doesn't run on unobtainium. Do you think that Janeway or the locals would quash a return trip that could possibly be the only thing that could save this world? Especially when the containment field is lost in an area, allowing water to escape into space, which is only prevented by the Flyer's timely intervention. It's also how they learn that this place was constructed all right, by drawing all the water off of a nearby planet.
Why would anyone want to move an entire ocean?
Perhaps the water was killing all the sandworms producing the spice melange. But what matters isn't that they made it, it's that Riga's people are destroying it. The way they're harvesting the ocean is causing density changes that affect the pressure on the reactor that's holding everything together. And the loss of containment happens because there's not enough power to preserve the ocean and preserve the reactor itself. In the cell, Tom has a dream that he's a boy playing with a sailing ship and being yelled at by his father and Captain Janeway. He's awakened from the nightmare by Harry. Seems that Janeway has decided to allow Harry a few minutes to interact with Tom, presumably just to shut him up. Harry encourages Tom to finish his letter, so that means that we get back to the story. Voyager helps the aliens with some plans to monitor the reactor at the core and new plans for their mining that won't have the negative side effects. But it will have a lot of short-term negative consequences, so it probably isn't going to be done in time. Tom's incensed over this, but Janeway says that they've done all they can. If the aliens choose not to listen and wind up destroying this place, that's out of their hands. Tom's extra bummed that this wonderful thing is being destroyed by stubbornness, and Torres encourages him to take a stand if he really feels that way. So he snags Riga and wink wink say no more, gets him to ask Tom for help in taking out the factories that are causing this problem so that they'll be replaced with ones that won't. As you can imagine, this kind of thing is at best ill-advised and at worst could be considered terrorism, but Riga agrees that this is the only way, and he and Tom swipe the flyer, leading to a confrontation between him and Riga and Janeway, Tuvok, and Chakotay. A confrontation that the latter group manages to win as they eliminate Paris's torpedo and disable the flyer all with one shockwave. Which of course brings us to the thing that got Tom thrown in the pokey. This is how the framing device that was added in helps to add depth to what is otherwise a rather straightforward tale that underutilizes its premise. It moves it into a character piece. The ocean world reminded Tom of the thing that had been taken away from him by his father. A man who felt that the sun rose and set on Starfleet and all of its rules and regulations. To see this incredible, unique thing in the galaxy lost for so petty of a reason, and by those who only claimed to have it as finders keepers, was to lose the sea all over again. And once again, because of Starfleet and its rules and regulations. By defying the rules and Janeway, Tom was defying his father and the attempts to take it away from him again. The connection of the two in his dream contributes to that idea. Additionally, his desire to explain himself in his letter, to let his father know why he did this, was to put it all down and say, "You may not approve, but this is something that I believe in, and I would not stand by and do nothing. Whatever you think of me, never think that I lack conviction." Post-episode follow-up, Stupid Neelix's moment is asking whether the aliens have always lived there. Why, yes, of course they have. That's why they breathe air and have metallic spaceships on a world without an atmosphere or metals. Final score for 30 Days is 7 out of 10. The character work and some nice undersea visuals help turn a rather by-the-numbers tale into something better. Though I'm disappointed that the character stuff is connected to a backstory of the week, rather than something that's a bit closer to the character that we know. Something this important really shouldn't come from nowhere and then go nowhere.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
I'm afraid.